And we are live. Hey, everyone. This is Resonating with Res, or sorry, I should say Resonating with Res. I am one of many people guilty of calling you Res.
This is Resonating with Res, or sorry,
that might be playback.
Resonating with Res.
That could be me.
I am one of many people guilty of calling you Res.
That is me. Sorry about that. About that open window. So yeah, that's a really great start to the video. We're just going to chat about some stuff we've read recently, just because we felt like doing a hangout. So because of Res, and some other people, I grabbed the first trade of Black Monday Murders, which I was not expecting to like, because I am not at all interested in the stock market. Hi again.
Did you see her? I'll do like this. She just kept swaying with me.
And so I'm not interested in the stock market. I thought that the idea that there's a like some kind of satanic-ish cult who's controlling the stock market, I thought that was pretty stupid, actually, when I first heard it.
Did you?
And then if you look at the art, if you just glance at the art, it's kind of photo referenced looking, you know, with the faces being the same panel to panel to panel a lot, which is another thing that I usually don't like. I don't know if I'm finding good examples of it.
I think you are.
So I didn't, everyone told me it's good and I didn't believe them, but I got the trade anyway, because also it's Hickman, and I usually like him, especially when I read him in trade. And after at first I kind of was resistant to it, especially because of that photo referenced art. But after about the first, and in this version you can't tell where one issue begins and the next ends. But after about the first 20 pages, I became mesmerized and I couldn't put the book down. And I read it all the way through, which is unusual for me with my usual lack of time. And just for some reason, it was awesome. I think it's done with like total conviction. There's no wink, wink, nudge, nudge anywhere, and they just build and build and build on their crazy idea. And even the photo reference art started to seem really cool to me. I like the way it's colored anyway, but it actually added to it's kind of a hypnotic comic.
Have you ever read any other works that feature the illustrations of Tom Coker?
No, I never ever heard of him before. Have you?
I haven't. I mean, I actually was trying to go out and seek some more works from him, and I didn't find anything that was like recent. So I guess I kind of came up nil for something.
Their bios at the back are all redacted.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of documents in this book with a lot of redaction. So the only word under Jonathan Hickman that isn't redacted is the word lies. And under Tom Coker, the unredacted words are is a thief. And the colorist has blood on his hands. And the letterer cannot be trusted.
I love those redacted files. They're really the best part for me, because I guess the military thing, the military reference, you know, me being in the military kind of.
Have you looked at redacted files in real life?
I have. And so for me, I worked in Intel before, so it was pretty cool seeing that, you know.
Did you ever redact files yourself?
No, I didn't redact files myself, but I've
never got to be the person drawing lines through things, right?
Yeah, no, I haven't had to do that, but I've actually.
Do they look like this? Did they look like this? Is that accurate?
Yes, that is very accurate. Yep.
Huh. So I can't wait to get the next trade. I decided I decided that I should wait for trade because it's so much fun to read a big chunk of it at once, but it's really hard, really hard to wait. You were reading it in singles, right?
Yes, I've been reading it in singles. I'm up to date on it so far, and I really enjoy this title.
So it's, what issue is it on now? Do you remember? Like 7?
Issue 7, I want to say.
Okay, this was the first 4 issues, so there's been 3 more issues since then.
Mm-hmm.
The first 4 issues were really fat issues, super fat issues, I think.
Yeah, which I was complaining about in most recent videos on a comic book roundtable, where I kind of speculated that the amount of pages have subsided and kind of been reduced a little bit, and I think it's because of the time output.
They also reduced the price, right? So it might have been they thought the price point was keeping people from buying it, or it might have been, like you say, the time thing.
I think it was both, to be honest. I mean, nobody knows what this book is about, I mean, and then so they wanted to put it out there, but then they feel like the price may be somewhat off-putting, and so they felt like they needed to, kind of give somebody a double whammy and reasons to pick it up.
Jason Bonin is here, and he said, "Who really killed Kennedy?" And I think it's this woman or creature who's all pale white, clothes and skin and glasses and hair.
Okay, familiar. She's considered a familiar.
Her familiar.
Yeah.
Maybe you learn more. Maybe you know more about the familiars than I do so far. But I thought that familiar was really cool.
I really liked her character because she speaks in this very magical, mythical kind of language that's very arcane, and you really don't know what it is. Like you may learn pieces of the language throughout the series, but I
assume she's reading the language that was originally from this ancient language that they use to conjure mammon or whatever it is that they do.
Yes. And I don't know if you're on the singles at all, but there's some pretty revelational stuff that happens in this latest series. We kind of find out about the this professor that we see in the first few issues.
I like that professor too. Yeah,
that professor, when he's eventually when he talks to that detective, they kind of come to a conclusion in their research / detectioning.
I should talk to the detective while you're talking about him.
Yeah.
On the cover. He seems to have some kind of supernatural power, right?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily power. I think it's the fact that he's aware. He's woke.
Oh, okay. I thought he could sense things that other people can't sense. Here he is talking with the professor.
Well, I think the sensing is that he doesn't believe in the same that everyone else believes. So he's at an advantage, or as some would say, a disadvantage. So while everyone else believes in maybe Christianity, he's in this position where he believes in magic because of his Haitian background.
He has a Haitian background, so he believes in magic, so he can. Yeah, I guess I need to reread it. I thought he literally had some extrasensory magical perception that other people didn't.
I honestly believe it's just the fact that
if you read further, you probably have a better sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really go too much into his character. I just think that based off of what I've read and looked at the book, I think it's just because of the fact that he believes in magic, that all this stuff doesn't come at no surprise to him. So it may seem as if he has some kind of ability, but really in all essence, it's just that he believes in this world, so it's more believable.
Well, and talking about him and how they don't go into his character is another kind of amazing thing about this book, is it doesn't have any of the usual characterization that usually makes me like a book. The good guys and the bad guys are more, they're like drivers of plot and of conspiracy and of paranoia more than they are rich human beings with a lot of feeling or anything. I mean, it's implied they have feelings, of course, but it's not the focus of the book, at least as far as I got. So to me, it's fascinating that this book runs counter to all of the traditional ways that I would like a book, and yet is totally fascinating.
I agree. It doesn't have the same formula that you would expect, and it's some kind of, I guess, like you said, like thriller or something that kind of draws you in. Like thinking about, I think the closest book or even movie I could think of that reminds me of Black Monday Murders is something like Manchurian Candidate, maybe because I've recently watched it.
It's similar to, I haven't seen that in a long time, and that's a really cool movie.
Yeah. And I like it because it has all these machinations going on about, you don't know what's real, what's not, like what's really happening. And I feel like with Black Monday Murders, you have those elements that are there, but it's not in the same traditional sense as that original film nor the book. So it definitely gives you a different experience. When you're reading Black Monday Murders, you can definitely appreciate the direction it goes in while still keeping you intrigued.
It seems like it kind of captures obsessive paranoia.
Yeah, but in a different way, where it doesn't feel like it's necessarily
different than other things that have tried to do that.
Yeah,
it's even different from like Philip K. Dick, who's really good at paranoia. But but Philip K. Dick is also kind of like Woody Allen or something. His characters are all major neurotics, and this doesn't really have neurosis in it that I can see so far.
But to be honest, I appreciate little neuroses in all my
I usually do too, yeah.
So you know what? I honestly I don't think the book would suffer if it did contain that attribute. But hell, I mean, the fact that it doesn't have that in there and is doing just fine by me, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. But
by the way, I want to give a big shout out to Monty, collector of stuff. He hasn't made videos in a long while. I think both busy with other things in life and a lot of health problems, at least earlier. I hope you're doing well, Monty. Great to see you here.
Same here.
Yeah, boy, Monty takes me back. Sorry. Well, kind of similar. I also read Mayday, which is a standalone trade. It's a one and done story in terms of, I guess, the 5 issues that originally made it up. And it's this wildly convoluted spy assassin story that takes place, what is it, 1970 or so?
Definitely the late 60s.
And it even winds up in San Francisco in the middle of a big protest and stuff. It's been a while since I've read this now. It has really cool art, really cool coloring. And
Blondie Parker did the art, correct?
Who?
Blondie Parker.
Tony Parker's line art, color art is blonde.
Blonde, yeah, blondie, yeah.
No E on the end of it here.
Okay, so blonde.
The same as the one who uses the E at the end of his or her name. I'm trying to.
I'm really curious. What do you think about the writing compared to? I know you also read issues of Alex Campy's and Carlos Pete McNeil's No Mercy.
No, I never read that.
Okay, you haven't read that? Okay.
I have not read that.
Okay.
I read descriptions of it and it just didn't sound like something I wanted to read.
Okay.
Maybe because it would make me fear travel or something.
it definitely puts some kind of fear in your heart of getting caught by some kind of a.
Whereas I don't have to fear the Cold War anymore. I can just look back on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I guess I'm drawing a blank on making many comments about Mayday. I thought I would have a lot to say about it, but it was a real fun, wild ride. There were some moments, it's not as perfect as Monday Murders. It's a bit sloppier in the storytelling. There's times when I couldn't quite tell what was going on, or they just thought you should say, oh, well, that's what it was like in the hippie days, so blah, 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 or something like that. It was interesting that she posted on Spotify, she posted a soundtrack. And when I listened to the soundtrack, it felt much more like a 60s story than without the soundtrack.
I usually to listen to soundtracks that are accompanied by a comic. It messes the whole thing up for me.
The comic should stand by itself.
Exactly.
And actually, the soundtrack was like an hour and a half long, and it only takes about 30 or 40 minutes to read this. So that was kind of funny. So did you like Mayday when you read it? I know it might have been a while ago now.
Oh, I really did enjoy Mayday. It was I liked the writing. I liked there's a lot of different significant scenes in there for me, particularly when we have one of the handlers from the KGB meet up with the the female character, what was her name? I think Flower, or maybe what was her name in the book? After Alex had ran off with the files that they were going to use to kind of.
The guy is Felix. I can't find her name.
Okay, I thought it was Alex, but yeah, Felix.
Alex Felix. That's pretty close.
Yeah. Her name, the girl. There was a situation where at one point she rejected that guy. Now that she has this I guess mark on her face from the failed botched mission, you know, he kind of feels like he can one up her and just treat her any kind of way, you know, and he makes a advance towards her and pretty much tells her that she is now under his behest. Like, she has to do whatever he says. Maybe she's lucky if she gets to live throughout all this, you know. It was very, very sad to see her.
But the Russians are planning to kill both of them, I think.
Yeah, both of them were gonna be pretty much put out. But he ended up living, but we don't know her fate, which I think definitely gave the book even more intrigue. And I like the way it ended personally. Like I kind of felt like Alex Felix was gonna live throughout the series. Her, not so much. You know. Well,
because I think she did. Who went back to Russia? Him or her?
Her. She did.
I can't remember. At the end, he gets picked up. He gets picked up by a Russian submarine.
Mm-hmm.
And she thought she had the microfilm, but he actually had swallowed it, and he pulls it out of his mouth. Which I think that was one of the sloppy things. They told us for sure they were going to be killed by their Russian handlers, and then it's supposed to be a happy ending because he has the microfilm. And there's an ad at the back of the book for the Brandenburg School for Boys, Volume 2 of the Codename Felix books.
Yeah, which I look forward to reading.
So it's going to be like an ongoing series of spy novels starring this Felix guy.
As long as she could do it in similar fashion as Mayday, I'll hop onto it for sure. You know, I like that character Felix. I think the only thing about the series that bothered me was some of the action scenes. They were so fast. Which, I mean, I like the art, so it didn't bother me, but at the same time, I felt like it was so much going on, you know?
I know Alex de Campi is known for liking exploitation films and making comics that are like exploitation films. So I wonder if she was thinking of it a bit as like a spy story crossed with a hippie exploitation movie. She had some very pronounced scenes of full frontal nudity of women. Even though she's a woman herself, there were no naked men in the comic. The men kept their clothes on.
Which I'm in disagreement. You already know I need all to be shown.
Everybody should be naked. Equal time.
All parties need to be shown equally. But, you know, of course, they won't show that.
Right. Oops, I'm looking at naked women. Okay, now I'm going to blush.
But yeah, I liked Mayday. And honestly, after I read it, I remember feeling like, oh my God, I love this book so much. It has been some time since I've last picked it up, but I definitely could see that being a book I pick up and reread for sure. Just try to catch some things that I didn't catch before.
I surprised myself. I thought I would have remembered more of it to talk about, actually. So I guess it kind of went in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. Some of those books can do that. You know, like these days, a lot of these books they read really good in a moment, and then after the moment, it's just gone. You know.
Well, and I wonder if Alex de Campi is trying to write comics that will get turned into movies, like if she's aiming towards movie options and stuff.
Honestly, I could totally see that because I mean, you know how I have this, like, as of lately, I haven't really been enjoying Mark Millar's stuff, and a lot of people kept telling me when I was reviewing some of his stuff, they're like, "Oh, he only writes for films," and I was like, "Oh yeah, whatever. I'm gonna keep getting his stuff." Yeah. And then I realized once I started hitting certain series that he wrote, I was like, now I see it. I see what they're saying. So I can see that in this Mayday. I can see what people are, you know, I can see people thinking that. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever.
Millar gets the top artists because he's now known to get movie deals. Like he's a Hollywood wheeler dealer, and So if you're an artist and you do a comic with Millar, you could get that big movie payday. Like what was the one? The name of the comic was Secret Service, but they turned it into a different name as a movie.
The one, Kick-Ass.
Well, Kick-Ass is another movie of his that was another comic of his that was turned into a movie. But
yeah,
it was a spy movie. I can't remember the name of it.
Is it the one with
the second movie? So now he's doing
the one with Colin Firth, the one with Colin Firth in it.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know that was based off a comic of his. So, but you know, I love that movie.
I haven't seen that movie. I should. I read the comic.
I love that. I love that first movie. I haven't watched the second one, but surprisingly, I love that movie. I didn't know it was based off of his work. So I'm really shocked.
And I think every single one of his comics gets optioned because he's basically in movie development. That's why he does comics.
Yeah, which makes you it could be a deal breaker if you still follow him.
Yeah, I read a lot of his comics anyway, but they have their limitations because they're clearly meant to be movies.
They feel theatrical, most of them. Like that Reborn, for me personally, when I read it, I feel like it's just a very, you could tell it's something meant for a film. I personally didn't care for it. It lost me in a lot of areas where the cat came back as like this evil,
as a demon or a bad guy or something.
I didn't like that at all. I was like, this is stupid. And that's where it turned for me. If they went in another direction where maybe the evil demon was her husband, that would have been even more of an enjoyable story. I would have stayed on for that. But
right,
the fact that they made the animals like under service of this demon, I was like, that's stupid. I
even wondered if she would turn out to be the evil demon.
That would be even better too. I mean, all those possibilities would have been a lot better, but the series for me was trash once it turned to that. I think issue 4 was it? Did we find that out?
Who the demon was? I think, yeah, issue 4, and then it ended on issue 5.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a movie made from Britannia, which Britannia 2 doesn't even take place in Britain. It takes place in Rome entirely.
Yeah.
You had asked a while ago what I thought of it, and I meant to make a video about it, so I thought I'll do it now. So I read Britannia 1, and that's another one that I can't remember I can't remember how they resolved it anymore. But wasn't it supernatural at the end of Britannia 1?
Yes. We find out that it was this sort of demon that was making people hallucinate, and people were feeding off of this demon. Like this demon was feeding, he was I guess promising wealth to that one dude at the head of the army, and he was killing for him. The guy, the head of the army, was killing for him.
And it was a real demon, right? It
was a real demon.
Right. But then in this Britannia 2, or it's called Britannia, We Who Are About to Die, he doesn't believe in the supernatural.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm Sherlock Holmes. Everything has a logical explanation. I feel like there's a lot of I'm enjoying it, but I feel like there's a lot of slop. For people who don't know, I should apologize. This is supposedly about the first detective in history who is a Roman legionnaire who now works for the Vestal Virgins in tracking down crimes and things. And he was also broken by some supernatural spirit in a war, and then the Vestal Virgins kind of put his psyche back together, and that turned him into this detective, I guess.
Yeah, with his codex of sorts.
So it has really cool art by Juan Jose Rip, who is a really wild and creepy artist. And it's written by Peter Milligan, who of course has a great track record, but his track record's been spotty in recent years.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I constantly kind of like it and then get a little annoyed by it. Like at the end of issue 2, he's hunting down some clues, so he runs out in the middle of a gladiatorial fight to ask some questions of the woman gladiator who's just about to make her last kill and get her freedom. And then randomly Nero decides, well, he wants them both to be killed, and he sends out some legionnaires to kill them in the middle of the Colosseum. And then in issue 3, they manage to fight off all those legionnaires. And then Nero still wants to kill them, but for some reason he can't quite do it. And so they get to go off and keep working on solving the crime. Have you read issue 3 yet?
The most recent, We Who Are About to Die or something? That was one. I don't believe I read number 3. I stopped at
Okay, so I just spoiled it for you a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, this is fine. I mean, it's not going to spoil it for me.
And so one of the elements in here is that statues of Apollo come to life and kill people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a
witch,
a slave witch who seems to control people's personality, and she seems to use a little voodoo doll. Mm-hmm. But as they go along in issue 3, do you mind if I keep spoiling things?
No, mind.
They find out she's using some kind of hallucinatory herb. So maybe she's using that to help her hypnotize people. But how she can do it from a distance with a doll. So he's kind of constantly cheating a little bit. And then another weird thing is at the back, there are articles about historical Rome. Mm-hmm. And one of them is, well, actually, 2 of the issues have articles about the gladiators, both of which state that gladiators actually weren't killed that often, and say a number of other things about the way gladiators are done, which is not how it's done in the comic. And then the other article is about how in the time of Rome, of Nero, women actually had a lot of rights. Not as many rights as men, but and especially the wealthy women had a lot of rights and ways of controlling things. So, which is contradicted by the book, where all the women feel powerless, except they feel excited because there's this woman gladiator who's killing all the men. Mm-hmm. So I find it, oh, here's a great scene. I find it odd that they even put in these historical articles, since this is not historically accurate.
Honestly, I don't get the whole entire series. Why it's even in the Valiant universe? I mean, because
that's a whole other big question. It seems zero connection to the Valiant universe
at all, because you remember they were highlighting this series as somewhat of a compendium, that was something that was going to be an add-on to the universe. But for me, how is it add-on when, okay, and there's also another series called Savage that I read that I really enjoyed, but I still don't see how it adds on, because that was more of a time travel / series, adventure series. I don't get how these relate to Valiant. Like, I feel like Valiant is doing these separate little stories, and they're hoping that one day it connects all together. But I don't see how
they just want to do the separate stories, and they're saying they connect to help sales.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
They feel like kind of Gonzo Vertigo, like Vertigo on some kind of drug or something.
Yeah,
Vertigo was already on drugs, but now it seems like even more on drugs or something.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Fever Dream, or at least judging from the Britannia ones. I still like it. I mean, I'm glad I'm getting it. I love the art. And Peter Milligan does enough interesting stuff, but it's full of hints that it could have been much better than it actually is.
I prefer his Hammer comics, The Mummy,
I haven't got a hold of those yet. My store doesn't get them, so I guess I'll get them in trade when the trades come out.
Yeah. I prefer that, extraordinarily better than the Britannia series, but I just felt like it was more cohesive and more straight.
Okay, well, I look forward to reading those. Did it feel like it was written by Peter Milligan, or did it just feel like he was doing work for hire?
Definitely work for hire. I don't think anything I've read as of late that Peter Milligan's done reads like a Peter Milligan story, and it saddens me because I find myself picking back up Skin, or picking back up Enigma just to get that old sense of again, or
Right. Well, I think he's a different writer than he used to be, even when he's doing well. There was a comic he did for Dynamite that I actually liked a lot, but I just can't remember the title of it now, about these people who couldn't be killed, and the government was controlling them, but they had all these incredible powers, and this guy tried to erase his identity and escape the government.
Sounds so familiar.
Sorry?
Sounds so familiar.
and he went and took over the life of an American abstract artist or something, and fell in love with the wife and the children, and it was pretty kooky. I really liked it, but it only lasted 5 or 6 issues, I think.
Why? It sounds like something I've read. I can't think.
I wish I could remember the name of it. It had a kind of generic name. Exile States here. Hey there. That's a friend of yours, right? Justin?
Yes.
Justin. Hey, Justin. So we have 4 viewers. I wonder if Monty and Jason, I think Jason's still there. Oh, one of our viewers is Res Reads. So we have 3 viewers, but that doesn't matter. I love the I'd love to see some black and white art by Juan Jose Rip.
Have you read
really cool. Sorry?
Have you read more series by Juan Jose Rip?
A few. A long time ago, he did one called Nancy in Hell that I liked, and it was very much like a B movie taking place in hell. Hey, Monty. And then he did Clone, which was a really well-written thriller with a lot of horror aspects to it, sci-fi horror kind of thing. Did you read Clone?
I read like the first or second volume, and I haven't. What happened with the rest of the volumes that I had?
Unfortunately, the sales didn't work out, and I think after what was probably 4 trades or 5 trades, they stopped. So I was always bummed about that.
I've read a lot of his Avatar press works. You know, like.
Sorry? Oh, he used to do a lot of Avatar press, didn't he?
Yeah, I've read a lot of his stuff with Avatar press.
Unless I think Nancy in Hell was Image, but it might have been Avatar. Justin says Valiant seems to have lost a bit of its steam. They did the relaunch about a year ago now. So he's saying since the relaunch, they lost some of their steam.
I agree.
Well, the interesting thing about Valiant, I assume most people know, but it's a group of investors bought Valiant Comics from the 90s, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and relaunched Valiant. But I guess I think there's been another more recent relaunch that Justin's talking about. But so they bought this package of characters, and they've been mining those, like Exo-Man of War and
Bloodshot
and all of that. But now they've started adding ones that I think are brand new that I don't think they have any link to the old Valiant. So maybe they're experimenting. I wonder if Peter Milligan or Rip gets a piece of the action on these. I bet the copyright, though, is just Copyright Valiant Entertainment, LLC. Oh, and then Valiant was partially bought out by some movie studio. Like some movie studio pumped like $600 million into them because they want to do a Valiant movie universe like the Marvel movie universe. Well, I think there are plans for a Bloodshot movie.
I don't know how that's gonna go over, to be honest. I don't hear people walking around the comic store saying, "Oh, let me go I have to get that Valiant comic."
Well, I actually have been reading a lot of Valiant comics lately. I love Faith, and I like Archer and Armstrong, and the newly relaunched Man of War. I know you didn't love that one, but
I like it enough, yeah. It
pressed my Conan sci-fi button pretty well.
I like I like the illustrations a lot. Right. And I like the Harbinger Renegade series.
I haven't read that one yet, but I always liked. I liked their earlier Harbinger. I never know how to pronounce it. Series that was by Dysart was the writer.
Okay. I have yet to jump into Faith. I felt like I had enough of Faith in the Harbinger Renegade title.
Oh, okay.
I was always nervous that I wouldn't like Faith. Well, I was always nervous that if I got Faith, I wouldn't like it as much as everybody else did. So my way of getting to know her was through the Harbinger Renegade series.
The Faith series that I think is just wrapping up now really focused on her as a fangirl. You know, they have a 2-issue arc that takes place at a convention, and they just load it with that fangirl stuff and stuff with her interacting with Hollywood and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Justin says the JDF is Bloodshot. I'm not sure who JDF is. I'm out of it.
Yeah, I don't know who that is either.
And Justin says the new XO series looks amazing, and I have to agree. They just have amazing art in that, and that really helps for me. It feels like they're taking their characters and going further afield with them, like stretching the idea of Man of War so that he's just this barbarian on another planet, and it's not connected with superheroes for the moment. I don't know if that's part of a master plan or whether they just got tired of the cohesive superhero universe and are trying different things. They also had that series Divinity. Did you read that?
I got the first issue, and I just, for some reason, I didn't pick it up. I picked it up because Kent was attached to it.
Kent, was that the artist?
Matt Kent was the writer, I believe.
Oh, Matt Kent was the writer. Yeah. I read the first 2 Divinity series, and I missed the third one. They've had 3 now.
Well, I read the original. It was a graphic novel back years ago. I remember grabbing. I read it, but then they had recently had a single issue, I believe.
Huh? I didn't know it was a graphic novel years ago. I just know the 3 miniseries they've done.
Yeah, because I had like 5 or 6 trades that I had picked up of all the Valiant series. That was my first introduction into Valiant, was years ago. And
XL State says the new Faith series starts next week. Faith in the Future Force. That's exactly what it's called. So I think she goes into the future and meets future versions of, I'm just guessing, of Valiant heroes. I'll be getting that too. I'm a big Faith fan.
I'll have to try it out one of these days.
It's my nerd love, I guess.
You're making a converter of me.
You don't necessarily like the same things I do.
I know, but I mean,
I'm a huge superhero fan, and for you, superheroes are something you can take or leave, as far as I understand.
I like if it's a superhero, it's usually something that is more unconventional. Like we were talking earlier in the comments, you mentioned Irredeemable as a great retelling of Superman, and I completely agree.
Right.
It's one of my favorite retellings of that, besides the Max Immortal. I would actually say I like Irredeemable more because of how it punches you right in the face when you first read the first issue. That first issue was so crazy, where we were initially introduced to a character who is, on his deathbed. He's dying right there, and we find out that it was essentially this superhero gone rogue.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Monty likes Faith too, so I have at least one person backing me up.
I mean, I like her enough, enough for the Harbinger Renegade to continue on with that one.
Well, what was I going to say? Oh, like with Irredeemable, and I assume with Max Immortal, these things are tearing superheroes down as much as they're building them up. Do you think you like that better in general? The superhero in shame, the superhero gone bad.
Yes, that's like exactly what I like. I like that more. Now, because I mean, something about that, seeing them and seeing them have this capacity for such evil, while maybe having this small possibility of being good again. It being something that is so intriguing.
Right.
I found that far more interesting of a read than seeing someone who's straight-laced all the time.
Right.
Evildoers, something about someone that's already evil and may have to work through those machinations that got them to that degree and work through it to maybe reach a level of where they're considered good,
Well, and mainstream comics will play with that. Like they'll do, they have Irredeemable Iron Man right now, who is Dr. Doom. I think they call him Irredeemable Iron Man. And they have a Kingpin comic, and of course the Punisher is always kind of on the edge. But then they don't go as deep as these indie comics like Irredeemable and Max Immortal do into the depravity of the hero gone wrong. You may have read this. I haven't. Monty says his favorite comic right now is Cannibal from Image.
Yeah, I've read the first 4 or 5 issues of it.
I feel like that's by a writer that I like, but for some reason maybe.
Brian Bucaletta.
Oh, really? It's by him? Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was by him. But I guess I'll have to look at it and trade. If Monty says it's good, I'll probably like it. I think I backed off of just because it was called Cannibal and I wasn't in the mood for graphic eating of people, but I have to get over my squeamishness.
It started off pretty good. I really liked the first, like I said, first 4 or 5 issues that I read, but I had so much other things that I was pulling at the time. It was one book in general that seemed very similar at the time of Cannibal that I had on my pull, and I thought, why am I pulling both very similar books? So I decided to drop Cannibal. But very curious as to how it continues. I know that Terrence, he didn't like it. Was a particular scene in there where we had the girlfriend and the boyfriend playing this little game where they're acting like they didn't know each other, but they're playing it in a way where it's kind of very sexually violent. Playthrough of like a little role playing. It was kind of a little turn off for some.
Huh.
Yeah.
Some of these more extreme books, it can depend on what my mood is. You know,
Yeah.
For me, the mainstream comic book superhero books are like a baseline. They're always kind of easy for me to read, and some of the more, you know, even Britannia, I have to be in the right mood to sort of dive into that. Or, I mean, now that I know that I love Black Monday Murders, I'll dive into it as soon as I get the next trade. But before I knew how much I would like it, it took me a while to like make myself start reading it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have, you know, stuff like that. Maybe for you it's things like Chobits that are your easy to read comfort food.
Yeah. That's definitely a comfort for me. I love Chobits. Anything sci-fi really is like a comfort zone for me.
So people may or may not remember that Res sent me Chobits a long time ago, and at first my daughter grabbed it and wouldn't let me read it till she finished it. But she never quite finished it. It's like 800 pages long, and she's an 8-year-old. And it had a lot, when I finally started reading it, it had a lot more sexual innuendo and odd, sexy moments than I expected. But I think my daughter didn't understand any of those, so I'm not bothered by it. But I did have the moment of feeling like a bad father for letting her read it.
She?
Like, you have to start up the robot by touching her between the legs. Things like that.
That could be a little a little sexual, I suppose.
And if this represents Japanese sexuality, then they are really screwed up, in my opinion.
But you had to turn a lot of people on that way, though, David.
Sorry, what?
You had probably to turn a lot of people on that way, right? Not just the
oh, by touching them between the legs, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know about female robots. I haven't encountered any. Yeah. So what was I going to say about Chobits? So I found it interesting to read, but I didn't like it. No insult to you for sending it to me, and I appreciate you sending it to me. And I got further into it. I guess I'm on page 600 at the moment. So I'm further into it than I ever have any other manga.
I was so proud of you, David.
I would go through periods of kind of getting tired of it, and then something interesting would start to happen. And you know, like, girls are like throwing themselves at this boy, but he never gets it, and he's always blushing and embarrassed. Are your kids still awake? Should I not be talking about Chobits now?
Oh no, yeah, you go. You can talk about it. She made me a picture. Isn't it cute?
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah. Is that a monster or a superhero?
It's probably me.
I like the colors and the energy.
I know, right? Sure, go ahead.
So how old were you when you first read Chobits? Do you remember?
Yes, I was in 6th grade. So that meant I was close to like 12 or something. I was always the youngest in my class, so I had to be like around 11, 12 or something when I read that.
Right. So 6th grade would be 11, I think. So maybe you were 10.
Yeah, maybe I was 10. So yeah, I was pretty young when I read Chobits, and I didn't pick up a lot of the sexual innuendos myself when I read it. So I remember reading it and thinking, I don't know, it just felt innocent to me when I read it. But I guess now it's definitely interpreted in a different way. But I remember enjoying it, and
in a way, the whole thing is like this dirty joke about this guy who wants to sleep with his robot, but is too embarrassed.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. But something about it, like I breezed through the series. I ended up later on find out they had a TV show, an anime, and I watched the anime. Like,
oh, okay. So, did you like the anime?
Yeah, I like the anime, but I like the book more personally.
I read One Punch Man, well, the first volume of One Punch Man, and then I watched the first episode of the anime, and it was the same plot, you know, beat
exactly.
Exactly, which amazed me.
Yeah, it's the same with the I don't know if you've read Attack on Titans. It's the same exact thing.
I haven't read Attack on Titan yet. Do you recommend that one?
I like it. I like it as a book. Personally, I preferred it as a TV show more, even though it wasn't English. Which I don't mind. I love watching foreign films.
So you have to read the subtitles.
Yeah, you have to read subtitles.
Were there no subtitles?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't bother me. But I had both the omnibuses, like the huge books that I read through, and then I eventually watched the series, and I ended up watching all 28, 30 episodes, and each one was like an hour long. And me and the kids watched it all the way through. Whenever we go somewhere, I'll turn on Attack on Titan, and we loved it. You know.
I might try that one. It looks kind of cool. I think I've seen some of the anime, but it was just in Japanese without any subtitles, but it looked cool.
Yeah.
Another cool, my favorite thing actually in Chobits is these baby doll computers.
Mm-hmm.
So supposedly these robots are your personal computer. Instead of a laptop, you have a doll that you put on your lap and it's your computer. Or I guess a full-size female computer is like a desktop. More like a bed top or something. But in this picture, you can see our main character saying, "What?" And he's got this intense expression on his face. He's constantly looking, ah! That's like his main expression all the time. And I think if you're 12, that probably appeals to you more than when you're 56.
Definitely nostalgic.
I'm calling myself 56, but I think I turn 56 in a few more weeks. It's funny how I've mentally shifted already so that I won't be shocked.
I know how that is. I had my birthday recently, and
Where you turned 22?
Yeah, I know. I was like, goodness gracious, where are the years gone already?
For you, reading Chobits is a very recent memory.
It is. But you know what? Honestly, I had after I had sent it to you, I reread the first volume, and I thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, you know, like, I mean, it just all it fled back. There's so much series that have copied that. Like, I felt like when I read Alex and Ada, a lot of it was inspired by Chobits. I mean,
I'd love to know if they had read Chobits. They kind of reinterpret that whole character embarrassed because he wants to sleep with his robot into
a modern day
adult American terms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would make sense emotionally to Japanese, but it made sense to me with the kind of cooler American. By cooler, I mean cooler emotions, because the emotions are at such a high level here. But it might also be because the reading audience of this is meant to be 12 or something.
What's the love on me, doesn't it?
Little jumping bean back there.
You know, that's exactly what she is, a little jumping bean. She's up here delivering all these kinds of notes that her and her brother's been writing me.
Oh, nice. So, well, luckily they don't have to go to school tomorrow, right?
Yeah, they've been eating it up. The fact they don't have to go to sleep early anymore. They're taking full advantage, I suppose.
Let's see. Undisputed Frost says hi. He's on his lunch break. Collector of Stuff says, as for manga, check out a 3-volume story called No Longer Human. It blew me away. Okay, and Monty is in my own age group and stuff, so if he likes a manga, then that might be a good one for me to try. He says he has a bunch of manga titles that he can't get motivated to finish or continue. I tend to grow weary after 7 or 8 volumes. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem, the way they just go on forever.
Yeah.
Frost says that he enjoys Initial D. It's a race car story.
Sounds boring.
Pretty fun to read. So I guess a lot of people have manga suggestions. I think I grabbed One Punch Man at the store just because it was a superhero, and I thought, well, maybe that'll make it easier for me to get into. And it was kind of fun to read for a while. It's kind of a one joke story, right? One Punch Man.
The kids, they love that show, One Punch Man.
Your kids do? Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think an interesting thing that might interest you, Rez, that I found at the library, but I don't know if I'll read it because it's so thick. They have this history of Fantagraphics out.
And I didn't know this? Oh, my.
It is 700 pages long of an oversized hardback. I got it out of the library.
Oh, so the library had it.
Yeah, so maybe your library would have it. It just, I mean, it has a lot of illustrations, but also this would take a long time to read. I would like 100-page history of Fantagraphics, not a 700-page history of Fantagraphics.
I see. There's a on the cover. It looked like there were some legal works I was intending on ordering.
Who is that? That art looks really familiar, but I can't quite place
it. Daniel Klaus.
What? Oh, it's Klaus? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It looks a little different than regular Klaus.
Let me see, because it could be Charles Burnsy. No, it looks like Daniel Klaus to me. Yeah, it looks, because usually, that's Klaus.
Let me see
cool.
the credit.
It really looks reminiscent of his work in Patience, don't you think? You've read Patience. Yeah,
I liked Patience, although I think my favorite is still, what's it called?
Like a Velvet Glove, because that's my favorite.
The one where the end of the world happens and they're off on an island.
Oh,
David Boring. David Boring is my favorite, but I haven't read everything by him.
I love David Boring, but yeah, Like a Velvet Glove was my favorite.
I think I read that one.
And I had a video.
Cover credit, but I can't find it.
Dedicated to those.
So it's called "We Told You So: Comics as Art," which sounds a little bit like they're a little bit full of themselves, but I mean, they have published a lot of major stuff, of course. They used to be most well known for the Comics Journal. That's probably way before your time. But the Comics Journal was constantly critical of comics and putting down the mainstream comics and stuff. I used to read it and get annoyed, and then I would buy the next issue to read it and get annoyed.
So it was like it was giving you enough to keep going. You're like, I wonder if you're probably curious on whether they're going to do it again the next issue, and then you're let down. Like, oh man, they did it again. But I'll get enough.
So even though they published a lot of good indie comics and helped keep the indie comic spirit going, I also feel like they're incredible snobs because of that magazine. Maybe I'll look for the chapter on that magazine and see.
You feel like they're elitist?
And they had a famous lawsuit where Michael Fleischer, the comic book writer who invented Jonah Hex, sued them because they called him like one of the worst hacks in comics in an interview with Harlan Ellison, and he said he lost work because of that. I always remember that lawsuit.
Oh. I thought it interesting when you find out.
Anyway, I thought it might be something you'd like to look for.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to return it before I actually read it. Let's see. Justin says, "Yep, the anime was great." I'm not sure which manga he's referring to when he says the anime was great. I don't know if that's Exile or Initial D. I think he might be talking about Initial D, which I don't know what Initial D is at all. Do you know Initial D, Res? And he says the anime was great. He remembers playing the arcade game at some car meets back in the day. So there's arcade games from anime too. Anyway, I guess that's all worth mentioning there. I'm surprised anime got into the world of arcade games. Video games makes sense to me, but arcade games, that's a ways back.
Yeah, it's amazing how they're all crossing over. Manga into comics, you know, comics into games.
Right.
Manga into games. They all fuse in each other at one point. How long they stay is up to time, I suppose.
Well, when my my YouTube pal Matt went to Japan a year ago, I think, and he was talking about how there's just manga everywhere you go and everybody's reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that happens to comics here, would I still like comics, or would I feel upset that it's so mainstream? Do I kind of like that I'm in this secret little nook, even though people look down on it, that other people don't know about this cool thing that I know about.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I find that comics are now being sold in like the Barnes Nobles, like, you know, that's usually reserved for books and graphic novels. But now
huge inroads already into books, but I still, like, if I read a graphic novel on an airplane, I still get odd looks from people. I feel like the only one doing it. In fact, once I had a stewardess tell me, "Aren't you too old for that?" And I was reading a Vertigo comic called The Unwritten, which is definitely not for someone too old. So, I don't know, any other graphic novels you wanted to chat about?
I know we were going to talk about The World of Adana.
Oh, The World of Adana, and I can't locate my copy. But
Yeah.
We both probably read this about a year ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for them to put out the next Mobius book.
Which will be it'll be The Art of Adana.
The Art of Adana, which is a little odd that they're so focused on Adana. I'd rather some new Mobius stories. I don't mind buying Art of Adana, but I want more to actually read.
Yeah, I mean, I like The World of Adana. I remember reading it and thinking like it was so great, and but I didn't feel like I guess because I'm ready to move on. Like you said, I'm ready to move on to some other story. I think I liked Blueberry more. I think it's my most prized possession of his, my most prized story from Mobius.
Which one?
Blueberry.
Oh, Blueberry. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to get a hold of Blueberry, so I should start hunting that down. Yeah. It's hard to find American edition of Blueberry.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get it in the U.S. or was that when you were in Europe?
A few in Europe and then a few here in the States. But I really, really love Blueberry. But The World of Adana is really good, and I did enjoy it. I'm glad I got the hardcover. I would love to have gotten these in the original format though, because I felt like some of the art in here, when it was blown up for this format, it kind of felt really, really photocopied. Like you could tell it wasn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, maybe
I noticed where the art suddenly changed and it got grainier and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Copies. I didn't think of that, but.
Look at this right here.
Good night, Justin. Good night, Frost.
And this page in particular, I noticed the art is not very detailed. It seems like it's photocopied.
Well, in the intro, he said he was trying out a new art style that was purposefully extremely minimal.
Yeah, I saw that. I read that.
But then when the art style changes, it actually gets more complicated, but still has that grainy look that might be because of photocopying. What
was your impression for the whole entire World of Adana? Like, I mean, what did you feel like it was essentially? I mean, because I personally felt like it was a story. It was a love story wrapped up in a very crazy, wacky science fiction world, fantasy world. But what did you view it as?
Yeah, but I don't think it even started as a love story. I think he kept changing his mind.
Yeah, I mean,
it really was. I think it was done over I don't know how many years, but there was large gaps of years between different chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had read it when it originally came out, you would have been had a really long wait, and then it would be kind of a different story. Like, I don't know.
What do you think about the metamorphosis of Aten to Atana?
I thought that was really interesting, but then I was bummed that it became mostly Aten's story, and there was very little of the woman, Atana, or whatever her name was.
Yeah.
Whichever it became focused on the male character once they became male and female.
Yeah, I felt like it was a retelling of Adam and Eve
it seemed that way at first, but then
it branched out.
Then it got even crazier than that.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, everything is possibly an illusion. I wish I had the book in front of me, but the last little chapter, it was all an illusion that the male character was having.
Because he was being he somehow got under the influence of a program called eDNA. Which is Dana, ultimately. But then he was it was apparently a dream that the Berg sent him so that he realizes that Adana is real, so that he can find Atana, which I think that's where it got kind of really crazy, because you're like, okay, was it a dream? Was it a program? What was it? But it was so much different fusions of stories. It was a biblical story with the Adam and Eve situation, where they're on paradise. It was science fiction. It was a love story. It was so many different things. But not my most favorite tale, but it was definitely a really good tale.
I feel like I was mesmerized. It was like a weird dream, and I just kept going and accepting whatever happened next.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end, I don't know, I almost wish he didn't do that final twist at the end and just left it like a dream with no explanation.
How long did it take you to read this?
I can't remember now, but quite a while. I read it very slowly. I felt like I had to look at each page for a long period of time and couldn't rush it.
Yeah.
How about you? Did you read it quickly? I mean, it could be a quick read.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 2 hours, but yeah. It wasn't too bad of a long read.
Oh, there's someone.
Yeah. I think she's ready to go to sleep, and her eyes are like droopy.
And before I saw your son, I think it was your son in the background holding something. I don't know if he was trying to show it to us. He's gone now, but.
Oh, was he? I saw you, my little Rugrats.
Kind of off subject, but Monty is talking about how he's really getting into Jeff Lemire. And he mentions Underwater Welder, which I own but haven't read yet. And he says he's in the middle of reading Essex County, which I haven't read. He says Lemire's storytelling is so emotional. And I've been really enjoying the current Lemire book that's out there, whatchamacallit, Royal City. Have you been reading that?
Yes, I really enjoy it.
And have you read those other Lemire books?
Yes, Underwater Welder, as well as Essex County, which I loved.
Is Essex County the best?
I think I like Essex County personally better than I liked Underwater Welder. Because I was so resistant against Essex County for some reason. I was so resistant against reading it because everyone said it was so great, and I was like, oh, whatever. I don't want it to be great. What I did was I obtained a sample for a blog I was writing for, and I read the first sample of it, and I fell in love, like within a few pages.
Yeah.
And I had to have it from that point. And so it was out of print at the time that I ordered it, and so I was able to obtain an out of print book copy of the hardcover, and I got it, and I loved it.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I should try it. It was, when I first heard of it, it was already this must read thing, and it sounded like homework to read it, so I didn't read it. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's part of my fear if comics became like manga. I'd like to feel like I pick out these things without being told by other people to read things. But with novels, everyone's always telling you what novels to read and all that kind of thing.
I remember my first journey back into recollecting when I started collecting graphic novels. I found that I didn't have that that platform where I was having people assist me or recommending me, I found myself just picking up something based off of the cover and the art in it and what the blurb on the back said. You know, if it had one, that was more so my process in choosing the work that I was gonna read and purchase. But I do notice that there's this this compelling feeling, you know, that you have to pick up everything someone tells you to pick up when you're watching videos, you know.
Well, and there's watching videos, which I kind of like the recommendations from my peers here on YouTube. But Essex County was like approved by the literary mainstream or something. So then it feels more like, you know, a teacher would be glad that you read that rather than Batman or something.
You know, I didn't know it had that much recommendation, but I know I loved it. It was very, very good.
It suddenly got really hot in here. Huh. And Monty's also reading Grant Morrison's We Three, which is one of the few Grant Morrisons I haven't read. So I'm really letting Monty down. Have you read that one?
I read a little bit of it when I was browsing through. I had time and I read like 1/4 of the book. It wasn't bad or anything. I didn't feel like picking it up. I was picking up so much other books.
I think that one's about
animals,
enhanced animals or something.
Yeah.
Well, I am getting so hot that I'm thinking of calling an end to the video, and not hot in a good way, but so it's been a lot of fun, and Res and I plan to at some point maybe read the Book of Chaos because we both own it and discuss it, maybe along with Savage Highway, which I've already read, and both of these are humanoid books. I'm trying to get into more humanoid books, both because they're a little different than American comics, and also because they're such nice hardcovers. And I'm slowly shifting over to becoming a hardcover collector, I think.
Oh yeah, come to the dark side, Damien.
So I really appreciate the people who joined in with us. Was particularly excited to hear from Monty, who I haven't heard from in a while. And it was great that Justin and Jason Bonine and I don't know Undisputed Frost's name, but glad that he joined us. So I wish you all a good night. Any last thoughts to leave us with, Res?
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, my pleasure. So we'll see you all soon. If you don't subscribe to Res, when I get a chance, I will put her link down below, and you should check out her channel. It is awesome, especially the usually weekly live shows you do. I guess that's your main thing right now, right? But I remember, well, I don't know if it was when you first started, but I remember when you just talked about graphic novels from Europe and other weird things. That's when Comic Crack pointed me your way, and so you've been a great addition to my YouTube viewing and my my enjoyment of comics. So really glad we got to speak again.
Yes. Well, I'll be coming back soon for sure. The weird chats and stuff.
Oh, sorry. Good night, everyone.